Hi, this is Tairah with Love Prevails here for another Monday video. I've got my friend Kaitlyn here, and I'm super excited to hear what Kaitlyn has to say today. Thank you for being here, Kaitlyn.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, Kaitlyn with Love Prevails, we do reach out to those that are struggling with addiction through peer support intervention services, also work with their loved ones. If you or somebody you know is struggling with addiction, please reach out and we'd love to be able to talk to you.
Okay.
Kaitlyn, how are you today?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. You talked about skiing earlier. Have you been doing a lot of skiing?
Yeah, definitely not enough. But my my friend has been coming out from California, from LA, and skiing a little bit. I need to get some more ski buddies here besides my boyfriend because he's hurt.
Oh, yes, his shoulder. Are you a really good skier?
I think I'm pretty decent. I ski like blues and blacks. And I grew up skiing in Tahoe. My dad was on the squash ski team as a kid, so grew up, before I remember I was skiing. So yeah.
I have not skied since the 1990s. Well, before I ever got married, I skied. I used to work at a ski resort. And
oh, cool.
So it was a lot of fun. I used to ski all the time, but sadly, I was never very good. Never got off the buddy slopes.
That's okay.
I want to do it again, though. I keep telling myself I'm going to pick it up again, and
yeah,
one of these years I will.
I have a lot of respect for people who learn as adults because the concept of flying down a mountain, an icy mountain, at this point in my life, like if you think about it and I hadn't grown up doing it, I would be like, no.
Right.
And when I learned I was made of cartilage and bouncy and small, so things hurt more.
Right. The older you get, they do hurt you. It takes longer to heal.
Yeah. A lot longer.
Yeah. Now, Kaitlyn, I know that you've been sober for a little while, and one thing I love about talking to the younger people is I feel like getting sobriety and being sober at such a young age it has to be really a difficult decision because you're in the prime of your life, you're out there, you're supposed to be enjoying life, and I have a lot of respect. And something that I think is pretty amazing about the sober community is there is a huge young people's I guess it's a subculture.
Yeah.
And they're a super tight net. And tell me a little bit about that, what they do and stuff.
Yeah, well, first of all, I definitely think the same thing about the people that get sober in their 20s, right?
Yeah.
I'm 34 at this point. I'll be 35 next month. But yeah, I'm grateful for the fact that I do have a lot of life ahead of me. The younger group of people that are sober are what I really, really am grateful for, in that when I started throwing myself into that fellowship, I was actually able to stop relapsing. I think that there are all kinds of different people within these groups, and I think that Denver is known for having a pretty incredible young people's community within the sobriety community. And I think that it's funny, I love my friends, right? My friends that I've known my whole life. But there is a certain depth and a certain quality of the friendships that I have with the people that are in sobriety, just due to the fact that they've really looked at themselves and done the work to overcome some of their character defects. And I find those people to be very authentic, and even if I'm doing something that's not necessarily my best, I'll hear about it from them, and that's really amazing, right? Because it means that they care about me. But yeah, I think it's funny because it's I definitely got my partying out in my 20s. And I'm grateful that in my 30s, or the latter part of my 30s, I can really appreciate life and actually be present for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So something that I like to kind of talk about on these videos with people, because there are a lot of people who either they have not realized it, because I did not realize that I was alcoholic, and I didn't even start this journey till I was in my 50s, and so and I still didn't believe it. So there's a lot of people that they really don't even know, and it took. Even once it was presented to me, it took me a few years for me to believe it.
Yeah.
And even then it was hard. So one thing I like to, to kind of talk about is what brought you into sobriety?
Yeah.
Why did you even get into sobriety?
Yeah.
And why do you stay?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I too had to have a lot of evidence before I was willing to accept that this was not okay. I was not okay. I do not drink alcohol like a normal person. I've always had sort of an addictive personality. I do everything all out, always, even when it's not good behavior. So I think that, I started making some pretty grave mistakes in my 20s with like friendships, relationships, family. I have alopecia, so I lost my hair when I was in my early 20s and had a lot of insecurity around that, and I still have alopecia. This is a wig. And so I think that alcohol was definitely a way for me to feel comfortable in my own skin. And so in 2019, I moved to Denver, to work for Zoom, and was working for Zoom during the pandemic. And I had agreed to this job before I had moved, and before the pandemic had started. And then very quickly realized that, this is going to be like a very remote job, right? Because there's a Zoom office in the DTC, but I wasn't able to ever go into it until like my later years at that company. I didn't have any friends. I couldn't make friends. I'd like to say I'm like decent at making friends, although when I was drinking, I was also decent at making those friendships. But people had to stay 6 feet apart. People couldn't be my friend even if they wanted to be. And the drinking really just like took off because there was no structure in my life. I wasn't going into an office. I didn't have roommates. I wasn't near family. There was nothing keeping me accountable. So when I got sober, it was really about learning to do the right thing when no one was watching. And I don't think that was ever really part of my jam. I think that I was always just kind of like, we work the system. I was raised in a pretty competitive area, and like people aren't, no one's trying to be humble or trying to be on, like those aren't the main goals, right? So it was really quite a journey to start to turn my life into the goal being to be a good person and show up for the people in my life at my best ability rather than just have it be a fun ride. And then I think that when I started to get sober, all of these things started to click for me. That when I take accountability for things and get out of victim mode, things go better. And when I show up and do the right thing over and over again, things go better. And it's just interesting, it's like, I definitely was like a thrill seeker, drinking all over Europe, making bad decisions like internationally and nationally for my safety, right? Had a pretty high bottom. I didn't really ever like lose anything major besides some relationships that were important to me. But that emotional bottom was awful. That like, thinking that this was who I was and no one would ever forgive me, and being caught in that shame, I think kept me from getting sober for a while.
I can definitely relate to that because I was in that same thing. I still find loopholes in everything and work the system. That's just part of my nature.
Yeah, that's
but
how we
I
are.
do it within, I do it within the boundaries.
Yeah.
I don't cross the boundaries.
Yeah.
But I do. I push the boundary. I was telling somebody the other day who was asking me. They were challenging me on some things that I was doing. And I'm like, I have limits to the boundaries I push.
Yeah.
And so I do that even still.
I love that. That's funny. I think it's like quite a theme among people with addictive personalities. I think that we're quite intelligent and it can get in our way.
We're intelligent in the wrong way. So,
right, exactly. A little bit manipulative.
A little bit manipulative. I heard somebody say the other day, you gotta be really careful being around people that are sober because we laugh at all the wrong things.
Right. Well, it's like our trauma makes us funny, right? I mean, it's like this like great self-deprecating humor that I really, really like.
It's hilarious.
But I've learned, especially since I moved from the coast to the middle of the country, that not everyone wants my like dry, like rip on you sense of humor. Yeah. It is not always welcome.
No, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
You have to know your audience for sure.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's hilarious, and I love being around people that aren't afraid to just say what's on their mind, because you can relate with most of it.
Yeah. I think that I lived so much of my life trying to pretend that I was perfect and put on this image, and it is so freeing to just get to be myself and like know the things about me that aren't perfect, and okay, I'm working on them, great. But yeah, it's very freeing.
And to let other people know you're not perfect.
Yes, exactly. Because that's what really opens up like the most in-depth relationships. The friends that I am still really good friends with from back home are the people that I had opened up to about my alopecia. And in turn, they would open up to me about things, maybe eating disorders, trouble with their partners, etc. And it's like this like vulnerability with each other, and I think that's why like we have such strong friendships in sobriety. Is it's like, well, we already broke the ice. Like, what else are you gonna tell me, right? Like, there's not really, I mean, anything beyond, oh yeah, I'm an alcoholic and I've made all these mistakes that can keep us from bonding, I guess.
Yeah, as soon as you had mentioned the alopecia, the first thing that came to my mind is, I can relate to that on a, differently, with abandonment in my life and things like that. And so, and you're right, it's where one person has a struggle, somebody else has a different struggle, but affects them very similarly.
Right.
And you had mentioned that, you drank because you had trouble being in your own skin, and I did the same thing. I felt with a lot of different things that happened in my life, but it caused me to feel that I was a failure.
Yeah.
I was unwanted. I was ugly. I was fat. Nobody wanted me. And then when my husband took his life, I could not
that is just
cope
awful.
with that for a lot of years, and I was sober through all of it.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Until because I didn't. I mean, what I recently realized, because I drank in my 20s a lot. I did a lot of drugs and drinking and stuff in my 20s, but then I didn't do any of it until, gosh, I guess it was like 2011-ish is when I would have a drink here and there, and then it just very slowly. But I just, with the way I felt, I wasn't comfortable in my skin either.
Yeah.
But mine started by going into a deep depression and then turned into alcohol after that.
Awful.
But so we all have different struggles,
right?
But in a way, very, very much similar to one another,
right?
Even though you're coming from different places. So I was really glad that you brought that. And then, and I also had a pretty high bottom. You know, I did hurt relationships. I didn't, you don't have the legal issues. I don't have, you know, I didn't lose my home, anything like that, by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was heading.
I feel that.
I was heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember when I was working, when I finally realized, what the heck am I doing? I was sitting on a Zoom.
Yeah.
And I was watching myself and everybody else on a Zoom, and I had my glass of vodka, and it just looked like water.
Yeah.
But I knew what was in it, and I remember looking there going, what the heck am I doing?
Right.
And that was kind of,
right.
I was like, that's it for me.
There's moments you're like, huh.
Called Sedgwick and went
yeah.
rehab the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I think there's also an aspect of like people pleasing and wanting to be just like a cheerful, like easygoing person and never have anything going on that's wrong, right? Because now I notice that if negative emotions come up about like, you know, the outside world, the government, people that I'm friends with, etc., I like go back to that place where like I want to escape it, right? Because I don't want to be grouchy around my boyfriend and ruin his day, or say like, you know, have to complain to my mom and like talk about my feelings and work through these negative feelings. Like I would rather just avoid them. So it's funny because it's like now, of course, it's lovely because I feel so much more free, because when things come up, I talk about them with the people that are there for me. But I think there was a lot of like, oh yeah, just be like the cheerful, happy-go-lucky person. Like, here's some vodka. And that worked until it didn't, right? Like, it's like, I would get drunk enough then, and then I was saying mean things.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm that person that when I'm struggling with something, I will go quiet. I'll go quiet. I just want to be by myself. I'll turn all the lights out, and I will sit there and I will listen to the same song over and over and over, and you know, sometimes for weeks.
Yeah.
I don't do that quite as much as I used to. Now it's maybe a few days, but it's not weeks or months.
Yeah.
But now if I have a couple of friends now, that if I give them any indication that, you know, I'm having a down day or something like that, they're messaging me.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for me because I've always, you know, in the past, I've always shared with the wrong people, and it came back to me very negatively. But I found friends in sobriety that are friends.
Yeah.
And they don't, you know, they tell me like it is. And
yeah.
And they're honest with me. And like you said, they call you out when you're doing something bad. But they also love you through the bad things.
Yeah. It's like, it's pretty incredible. And I have a boyfriend, and I love him, and he's my partner, and I hope that it works out that we live our lives together. But like, I'm not someone who thinks that one person can fulfill all your needs. Like my girls, like those are my people. Like I go to them more than I go to my partner sometimes, right? Like, and then to have them be in a place where they do accept me for all that I am, but also want to help me like be the best that I can be, it's very humbling sometimes. And then I think it's funny because you were saying something about, getting in trouble, right? Getting in trouble more. And it's like, I always think about how I used to be like, life's not fair, right? My brother is a top law firm lawyer in LA, was always attractive, always like best grades, right? Like, and his life isn't perfect, but like to me, I always made it that, right?
Yeah.
And always made myself the victim. Life isn't fair. But now I think about it like, oh my gosh, life isn't fair because I should be dead. Like if life was fair, I would be dead. And I think that's really interesting and really like allows for like my faith to take place in regards to like that center that I live around.
Now, are you a lone survivor? Are you the only one in your family that struggles with addiction? Or
good question.
How does your family react to it?
Yeah, so most of them are pretty progressive in regards to like this being a disease and believe that, which I appreciate. It's awful the amount of shame that's still out there, the amount of stigma that's still out there. I do think it's getting better. My uncle when I was, early 20s, late teens, died of alcoholism. His esophagus just was gone, basically. So really, really awful death. And I think that I feel really grateful for not necessarily losing him. It's awful and sad, right? But that, I think, is the reason I had a higher bottom. Because as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, shoot. Like, it started to get real, and I started to be like, oh, like, I know how this ends, right? And then just not wanting to put my family through any more of that. It absolutely destroyed my grandmother. So I think that my family is like pretty accepting about it. I think they're really proud. I definitely had my fair share of amends. There was one Christmas party, like, had booth, basically. Like, Auntie Myrna, you're next, right? We would go to a coffee shop, and lots of events that Christmas. But I had ruined the Christmas before, so it was nice to, like, not be ruining it and owning my stuff. And
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't really know how my family handles it. We don't really discuss it. I know.
What about your daughters?
You know, my daughters are both sober.
Okay.
And one of them just celebrated a year, and the other one is getting ready to celebrate 9 months.
That's
here
amazing.
on the Valentine's Day. And so, you know, boy, that's been an adjustment.
Really?
With having them home and all of us sober, and, you know, some of us are further along in the program than others.
Yeah.
So that's been an adjustment, and we're working through some stuff right now for sure.
Yeah.
And but the bottom line is we're sober. The art of manipulation isn't quite as easy when you have a sober mom.
Fair. My mom's a therapist, so the art of manipulation was never easy for me either. At least with her.
So, you know, we are definitely learning how to live as a family sober.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, one's a year, one's 9 months, so it's still new. And so it's just, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. I love my family, but every once in a while I'll have that thought, like, if you were working a program.
Yes.
Because it's like, you know, I have to pay attention to the things that I do, because if I do something that causes harm, I will be making an amends. My sponsor is quite impressive, and frankly, I love her so much, but she terrifies me, and I will do what she says.
Yeah.
And that's what I need. But I think about the fact that, like, you know, you get in that rut where you're like, you owe me an amends, you owe me an amends.
I know.
Yeah.
I know I've done that too, especially in dating relationships. He owes me an amends.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then I have to remember, nobody owes me anything.
Right.
What was my role? I don't even care what my role is.
Right, exactly. It's like both freeing and annoying to not be the victim anymore. But yeah.
Yes, but being the victim is so much easier.
It is.
It's so much easier and so much more comfortable.
Right.
But it's also so much more miserable.
Yeah, it is. It gets you stuck. And it's nice that now, you know, we have alcohol in my house, and I don't ever even think about it anymore, because I really did the work to, like, get rid of what it was that was making me so antsy and itchy and wanting to crawl out of my skin. Because it's like, as soon as I start down that track, it's not alcohol. It's like donuts or attention or, you know, some other thing that I want more of. And that's the hint that I need to call Chris or really, like, hunker down on my program.
Yeah, I love that. That's something that I'm going to think about for me as well, because I see that too. Sugar.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of
Yeah.
sugar.
Yeah.
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 So tell me, why do you stay? What makes you stay sober? I know we talked about a lot of stuff, and you've already covered it, but I just want to know what makes you stay here. If you were talking to somebody who is like does not really see the benefits, or because when you're still active in your addiction, the thought of being where you're at in life is scary.
Right.
And it feels very unachievable.
Right. So a couple things. I still live my life like I'm in my early 30s, and I still go out with friends, and I couldn't really do that in the beginning, right? But we go and we still shake our booties and see live music and go to sporting events and all kinds of stuff. And like, I like to call, wine glasses and champagne glasses, like a big girl glass.
Mm-hmm.
I get like some good old ginger ale in there, and I feel like just as great, right? I think that a lot of people who, actually like a few people in my life, and I think that this is pretty common, have said like, oh, well, you're good now.
Yeah.
So like, let's do this, right? And it's like, even if there's a chance that like I was good, like why would I want to mess around and like take that chance with all that I've gotten from this?
Mm-hmm.
And like, why would I want to take away the beauty from of being present all the time, right? Even during the bad moments, I'm present, and that makes being present for the good moments so much more rich in regards to the joy that those moments provide.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'll go to the grocery store and, walk right past the liquor. In fact, I did it today. And every once in a while, I'll just sit there and I'll look. And I'll think, why not have a drink?
Right.
And it's right there. I mean, it's right there. And then I think why would I want to trade what I have for what I had?
Right.
Because what I had was miserable.
Right.
And getting to where I'm at, it took a lot of hard work.
A lot of hard work.
And I do let myself think about that from time to time, because I want to remember how miserable I was.
Right.
When I was actively drinking, and it was awful.
There's also not to be a stinker, but there are people in my life that I do not ever want to have to make an amends to again. Like, they're not my favorite people. I owed them an amends because I messed up big time. And I just don't want to have to do it again. And so sometimes I even think about that. Like, really, you want to do this? Because no, thank you. I don't want to. There's nothing, there's a good reason people don't apologize and own up to the things they do, because it can be awful. There's shame involved, and sometimes it involves someone who also has not acted perfect. And I think there's a lot of that, right? I'm happy to own up to stuff, but I also watch what I do these days, because I know whatever I do, I have to own up to it.
Yeah. And then there's always that opportunity where you feel like you're owed an amends and you're doing your part, and they're not reciprocating, and that's a tough one too.
It can be hard. It can be really hard. Obviously, my sponsor is very adamant about, obviously, we own it. It's not, they don't have to own their part at all. But it can be hurtful when there isn't any ownership on their end during that conversation. And that's kind of where I've been able to assess relationships from a place of sobriety and realize, oh wow, this person was probably never the best for me, right? Or wow, this person is incredible. I didn't even realize how amazing to, have gone through some of the hurt that I put into their life, and then still be well, I have a part too. That takes maturity.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you came and you shared this with us, and
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you came.
It was
I
so good to
really
see
am.
you. It was so good to see you.
It was good to see you too. It's been a really
Such
long
an
time.
honor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I hope that you all enjoyed Kaitlyn's story as much as I did. I was really excited to have her on. I'm really excited to have more people on that we're connected with and reach out to more people. And if you or somebody you know would like to share your story, please reach out to me. I'd love to have you. I know you can change lives, and your best life is waiting for you. Reach out to me, and we're going to find it together. I hope you have a wonderful week.